Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Madisonville Marine. The end of the year sales opportunities are going on right now. Rebates up to $2,500 back depending on the model of Skeeter boat you buy. Up to $3,000 back depending on the model of G3 boat you buy. There's no better place to buy a boat, not only for these deals, but just for the selection and for the people. You are going to love the customer service you get at Madisonville Marine. That's why people have been going back for 40 years. madmarine.com, Madisonville Marine, Highway 411 North in Madisonville. All right, I want to take the next two segments to talk about something David wrote for The Athletic yesterday. He spent the entire week behind the scenes access with the Chattanooga coaching staff. It's just remarkable that you got that kind of access. It's a great piece of work. People should buy The Athletic and read it. How about that for a plug? And I want to get your comments, David, on a couple of things their coaches said about watching UT on film because they stood out. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you the quote. You just sum up who said it and what they're talking about. First quote. Let's go to this. It's about Tennessee's offense. I can see why people with the personnel to do it beat them. They tell you what they're doing. Who said that and what are they talking about?
Yes, you're talking about Lorenzo Ward, who's got a lot of experience. He was at South Carolina in the SEC. And I think the biggest thing is, when they were looking at tape, the stuff jumped off at them very, very quickly. Where Tennessee's going to run the ball, who they like to run behind. They love Austin Pope. I mean, they're running behind him constantly. And
it was basically just follow number 81.
Basically, the thesis statement of their entire defensive game plan in the run game was 81 will take you to the ball. And you look at yesterday, it was pretty true, just Chattanooga didn't have the guys to stop it.
All right, and let's take a look on about UT's defense here, if we can get this up here. There we go. Two quotes. First one, I tried to work more off the BYU game than the Georgia State game because I thought they'd have fixed some things, but it's actually worse. Their fixes are worse than where they started. I mean, how can you be sound lined up like that? And then he said, they're a lot like us. They're not always lined up right. They don't always know what they're doing. Okay, who said that and what's the gist?
Yeah, I mean, Chattanooga's offensive coordinator, Joe Pizzo, has been at the FCS level for a long time. And just the alignment, it's kind of complicated to explain in a short amount of time, but basically just when you're leaving a ton of gaps and you don't have anybody ready over there to set the edge sometimes, and you're letting offenses get the corner on you, get the edge on you, and allowing backs to turn the corner, you're not going to be sound in the run game. And that's the biggest thing, and it jumps off to a defensive coach. It's easy for us to sort of look at two defensive linemen lined up on top of each other and say, oh, well, obviously that's wrong. But it's a lot more subtle than that. And you can also see when you have some simple motion, the linebackers were completely lost a lot. And that can really lose your gaps. And when a quarterback can read that, they can check to that. And if the running back can see it, you can give up some huge runs, and we saw that with Georgia State.
Before anybody out there hears this and thinks, what do they know? They're Chattanooga. They didn't beat you. These guys weren't being ugly about this. They're
trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and they also probably knew very well that they didn't have the horses to compete with it. Guys, reaction to so many tells on offense and the defense looking unsound. Thoughts?
Yeah, you saw some of it show up yesterday. I mean, early in the first half, I think about 2 minutes left in the first quarter, one of the plays, they had a nose tackle, they had an end, and the linebacker was lined up in the A-gap. So you had three guys out there. They got it, they got on the edge, and they got about a 47-yard pickup, I think, at that point in time. That was when they went down to the goal line and got false starts and ended up fumbling. But, you still saw some of the same mistakes, and if those aren't mistakes, then you're wondering, what's the defense there? Because there wasn't enough people to be there to stop anything. So you're still seeing those things. You definitely, the coaching staff's going to pick up on even more tendencies than us just casually watching on the game. But there are definitely things out there that are showing you what they're doing. And that doesn't count what the players' bad habits are telling you as an individual guy watching an individual player.
Hard to mask all your tells. All teams have tips and tells. So how obvious this was, from what you picked up, were they surprised that it was this obvious, some of these things?
Well, I think they know that Tennessee hasn't shown everything that they've got. And I think they weren't planning on getting Tennessee's most complex game plan. I think they knew Tennessee was going to keep it simple, but it helped them to game plan. I think they were surprised that they didn't have to watch a ton. I mean, they studied Tennessee's first 2 games of the year, and then they studied Jim Chaney's Georgia film for the Alabama game last year and the LSU game to get a sense of what they were doing. And just offensively, you know, they do some odd stuff. There's some things that they absolutely don't do. They don't run zone to the wide side of the field. They're just I learned a ton. I mean, for me, spending most of last week there, I learned more in that time than I think I did in the entire year of covering the team last year. It was fascinating to see the coaches sort of look at all that.
Sterling is grinning, and whenever Sterling grins, that means he's biting his tongue.
Well, Go ahead. And I am, and Davey, you probably did learn a lot. And I get it. That's a good thing. But just imagine the knowledge of Coach Niedermeyer, Coach Friend, Coach Johnson, Coach Chaney, who's been around. And then you got the people I'm more fond of, because we share the same position, Coach Winkie and T. Martin. If we're showing something, and I'm quite certain every play comes to the line of scrimmage with a check. If they don't adjust, why stop it? So you talk about these tendencies that the coaching staff at University of Tennessee Chattanooga saw. I'm quite sure we knew they were there. I'm just saying. So if they adjusted, it probably was another play coming behind that to the other side.
Well,
I'm just saying.
I would just say this. If you're saying that they rope-a-dope Georgia State and BYU to hide things,
I'm
then
not
they probably
saying
should have
rope-a-dope.
doped more than they roped. They lost the game.
I get what you're saying, but that's a great point. But when you talk about tendencies of a team, we lost the game. When you talk about tendencies of a team, I'm quite sure we're doing a great job of self-scouting ourselves with that brain trust we have on the offensive side of the ball.
Okay.
Well,
1
I
and
mean,
2. We get 10 seconds.
Yeah, when you're watching the option and there's only one guy there for a quarterback or the pitch man, there's problems.
That's defense.
Yeah, I know, and that's happening a lot.
That's defense. I'm just speaking about the offense. Hope it gets you to the ball.
Dan, you want to say anything quickly? 10 seconds.
The only thing that I add to it is just Chaney knows that big plays are how you win games to put points on the board. I agree with Sterling that he knows the Austin Pope thing for hopefully to have one play against Florida that you can score a touchdown off of.
True. It would have been nice, though, if you could have had another touchdown against BYU in the end. But anyway, you can get a little cute at times. The idea that a team, they're just vanilla to hide everything before Florida, that's great, as long as you don't come into the Florida game with 2 losses to Georgia State and BYU. But we'll see how much of it was vanilla, how much of it was tendencies that are tells, all that. We'll come back and get more from David with the media guys regarding what those coaches said about these coaches. Leave them boys alone. Come on back.